Time for a transition if we can, Brian. All right, let's go through my top 5. So you picked top 5 best stories of 2019, that inside and outside of combat sports.
Yes.
We're going to get to them in a minute. Let's go through mine. And we don't have time for all of these because I want to make sure we get to the stuff that really matters the most. But I do think, Brian, that this one does in fact matter. My number 5, the welterweight division. And I wrote from from Ben Askren's, he had a great run, then there was a collapse. The return of Nate Diaz. Anthony Pettis had a bit of a resurgence, although he had his own issues there. Jorge Masvidal to Colby Covington, and then Kamaru setting the world ablaze. Even as we carry over into 2020, Conor's going to fight Cerrone up there. So I get it's partly like a halfway step to 155, so I'm kind of cheating the margins here a little bit on this one, which I recognize. But still, Brian, we'll talk about some stuff that happened in other divisions with individual fighters, but to me, no division was hotter, no division mattered more across the sport for the things that we cared about the most, from manufacturing a BMF title to everything else, than the welterweight division in 2019. What do you think of when you think of the welterweight division?
I think of Jorge Masvidal. He's the winner. I hate when people do, who won the year? He's the winner of this damn year by far.
Yeah, by far.
Whether you wanted him as your fighter of the year or not, but you make a great point. The welterweight division became the sex division this year. Normally that's reserved for the few times heavyweight's hot, or light heavyweight, or lightweight right now, which is the deepest and darkest division in good ways. They made marquee moments happen. This was a fun-ass year, largely because of that. Yeah,
so heading into the next year, as I mentioned, Conor's going to go there. I'm kind of cheating the sides here, getting to it, but I always say this. You look at the different organizations, like bigger ones globally, their 2 best divisions, they might have a star here or a star there or whatever, but their 2 best divisions are probably going to be 155 and 170. It's just the center of the tennis racket, man. It's where when you hit it, you don't feel any vibrations back in the wrist. And this is proof of that. Now, yes, this is the marquee of all the marquees, but you mentioned Jorge Masvidal. Real quickly on him, you see him and Cejudo going back and forth yesterday on Twitter?
I did not see that.
Yeah, Cejudo was trying to claim Fighter of the Year.
He's got a claim. He's top 3 in my mind. He's got a claim.
He's got a claim to being on the short list. I don't think Jesus, that sounded mean. But he's got a claim. He doesn't have the same, here's what Jorge Masvidal did. There are all these guys in these divisions at 155 and 170 who are all really good for a really long time, but they kind of stay that way. And then there are the guys, sometimes through popularity and a win, usually the combination of the two, that elevate themselves out of the trenches. Nate Diaz did it a few years ago with Conor McGregor. Jorge did it this year.
And he didn't just go from journeyman to superstardom pay-per-view headliner level. In the process, he became a legitimate title contender and is on the outskirts of the pound-for-pound top 10. You couldn't script a more impressive, insane year.
Right, and I think doing that at welterweight is harder than doing that in other divisions. Now, Henry's claim is that he went up in weight class, which is tremendous. Okay, fine. But remember, Jorge Masvidal used to be a 155er, has gone up to 170 and put a claim there, and now done really well. That's not the same thing as being the champion. I recognize. Still, though, dude.
Well, I mean, what Henry could probably claim is he might have the best 2 wins of the year combined together. I thought the best win
against Dillashaw and then this.
I thought the best win of the year was Adesanya over Whitaker. I thought that was the most valuable, most impressive. That's part of the currency why I'm arguing Adesanya as your fight of the year. I have no problem with anybody picking Jorge. Cejudo, though, for the 2 fights he did fight in that 6-month stretch, it's pretty damn insane.
All right, we got to move along here. My number 4 was Tech Bros taking L. Did you follow the story?
No. First of all, you putting that beer through college? What's going on?
Yeah, I am. It's cold. It's still cold. Here's why I wanted to think about it. You had the whole HQ2 thing happening with Amazon, where they had this whole bid to have cities give them enormous utterly irresponsible tax breaks, including changing the names of cities to bring Amazon there. And then ultimately, where did they just settle on? They settled on probably the places they were going to go anywhere, just outside Washington, D.C. New York decided to bail on them, but they're going to bring some offices to Manhattan just the same. So it was a bit of a bad look for Amazon. Then on top of that, I don't know if you followed the story of WeWork.
Yes.
You ever looked at the rates for the WeWork offices? I
have not.
Dude, they're out of control high. And then it turns out you had this crazy as a shithouse rat CEO who was out of his mind. They had these enormous losses. They tried to get an IPO through. They tried to get an IPO through.
That was TJ Dillashaw.
And it was a total disaster. Then on top of that, you had Uber coming back down to earth this year. If there was one lesson in the year in tech beyond the consumer gadget side of things, this was the year that the bros who believe in the solutionism of their genius ideas took a big fat L.
By the way, this is your slapdick. You get on me all the time. Oh, somebody got hit in the dong. It's a Campbell original. This is your version of slapdick. You love clowning on nerdy white guys.
Yeah, I do. You're right. That's why you're here.
All right. Wow. Hey, by the way, I don't normally rock out with the goes.
How is it?
The super goes. Fantastic. This is great.
It looks cool. We'll skip that one. Let's go to number 3, the rise of Adesanya. 2 things happened in 2019. We saw the end of it with Volkanovski. Obviously, he's Australian. But more than that, you had the rise of Oceania, the rise of New Zealand. But no one was more important in that effort than Israel Adesanya in doing what he did. Obviously, it goes back to 2018 to really capture the full breadth of the experience, but the capstone to it with the fights in Atlanta and then ultimately the ones back in Australia at the Rod Laver Arena where he beats Robert Whittaker. Or was it Marvel Stadium? Excuse me. I think it was Marvel Stadium. Rod Laver was the Silva fight.
Yes.
In any event, just an incredible run.
They call it Rod Laver, by the way, in most parts of the world. Just keep going.
I like to say laver. You like to laver yourself up. Point being is, you just don't see rises like this very often. You saw John Jones do something similar. Habib's wasn't quite as quick because he had some injury in between, but you just knew you were watching a rocket ship to the stars. And I often said this, which was, we always talk about the rest of the world catching up to MMA. But if you look at what they're doing in that part of the world, and particularly in that Gym City kickboxing, they didn't just catch up. They've lapped the world in certain capacities, which was something I don't think the language we use to describe globalization of MMA really ever fundamentally captured. Go ahead.
Look, this was a hell of a year. That's why I wanted to make that claim for Adesanya as your fighter of the year. It's very rare that you enter with so much hype, people critically doubting you because you're so flashy. You can talk, and you're trying to make that claim that I'm a generational talent right now, and to back it up at the level he did with 3 fights. Good God, it's so weird. When I'm going over my boxer and MMA fighters of the year, and you're doing the debates and you're forming the year-end stories, MMA had 3, 4, 5, 6 legitimate contenders for fighter of the year. 3 or 4 of those years are like slam dunk years that would have won at any other time, where I feel like boxing, for whatever reason, had some very good years. There's an argument at the top. Did you like Canelo more? Did you like Spencer Pacquiao? Some very good years.
Yeah.
MMA this year had some breakout campaigns, some monster years. Some of that is obviously due to the more intense matchmaking that the UFC goes through. It's got to fight all killer, no filler. But even under that, guys, did anyone do anything more successful at the highest level than Adesanya? Masvidal splashed the pot.
Right.
But Adesanya, critically, man, that's a year that'll go up there in history.
In terms of raising his visibility, no one did what.
And he authored the fight of the year on top of that, and survived it.
But my point being is, for Adesanya, for that run he was on from, was it February of 2018 all the way until the moment where he captured the title, it's just the stuff of legend. And again, to do it from a part of the country part of the world rather, that is not historically known for that level of achievement, and then to just and under intense and unrelenting skepticism about his upside, pretty important there as well. We move to my number 2 story. I have to go to the tight shot here, apparently.
Oh, wow.
Aunt Becky might go to prison.
Oh, boy. Cut it out. Come on.
You look like a Dave Coulier.
You don't mean that.
A sweaty Dave
I thought Alanis
Coulier.
write a song about me, all right?
Yeah, did she? Well, I'm only going to go that far.
She did. You ought to know the big hit. All right.
In any event, the Aunt Becky character, there was this whole college admission scandal. The FBI uncovered all of these rich people were either paying people to take tests for their stupid kids, or creating false identities, or creating false resumes around the identities to get their kids into the elite of society for colleges. Not because it meant anything more than assuring their status for their progeny.
Yeah.
But just to do that, which lays bare all of the claims of meritocracy in this country.
Look at social Robin Hood. Luke Thomas just taking shots at the super elite.
Don't you find it just so representative of the age that we have these contests of meritocracy, which really the game is just rigged anyway? Don't you feel that way?
I'm going to check my dictionary afterwards to fill up most of that sentence. But hey, the mighty go down, and Luke Thomas was there to celebrate their L's. This is great.
Yes, but not because they're mighty and they're scoundrels.
Hey, I never saw that coming with Aunt Becky, but at 55, still got it.
Yeah, well, Felicity Huffman, I believe.
Still got it. I know you're trying to move past the conversation.
She had to go, I think, to do modest time, like weekend time. You ever have a friend get DUI and have to do weekend jail?
No, I hang around with a higher.
Oh, do you? Is that who you hang around with at the gas station?
Yeah.
A buddy of mine got a DUI, managed to figure out a way to go to jail on the weekends. So we'd always pick him up on Sunday and ask him if he could give us a ride to the liquor store, which he never really found very funny.
All right, we got to take a break to get a taste test going here, Luke. All right, what do you got to jump in with something else here.
What do you got?
All right, I'm gonna break in on that.
Oh, here we go. Take one of those. I like how you're breezing past any of my stories of significance.
Oh, well, you get so anal. I got to get to my other job. I got to get. Look, some of us
have bills to pay.
Some of us take days off from their other job in order to do this show.
I take the days off that I have.
All right. This is, look, I'm not a Belgian guy. We've been down this road before.
You'll like this one.
I've had this many times. It's friggin' fantastic.
Yeah, it's good.
All right.
What do you think? Give us the review. Give us the old.
And I know that 5 years ago this was the top of the line for that category. Since then it's passed, but it gives me the feels. All right, on the inside.
You like the little straw color that it comes in?
Looks like piss, but that's fine.
It does not. What does your piss look like?
You want to? No. All right. Where are we on with you? What's your
number one?
What's your moment of the year in 2019?
I think my number one, and I think you might agree with this, because it's true in sports, but it's also true out of sports. 2019 was the year that the streaming wars became official. You have Netflix, HBO Now / HBO Go. You have what's coming, Peacock. That's a real streaming service that's coming. But you already had Netflix. Apple Plus came on board. Plus, we know on the sports side of things, the two big competitors, of course. By the way, Flow Sports is kind of hanging out there. But the real two big dogs, well, they are kind of hanging out there.
I mean, unless you're like amateur wrestling, they're kind of dead, right?
They had DC United rights. And what says something about DC United. But the two big ones are DAZN and ESPN Plus. Let me say two things I think most folks get wrong about this debate. One about DAZN. 90% of DAZN's business is outside the United States.
Yes.
And they've even said you cannot compete in any market, whether it's the United States or any other one, unless you've got top tier rights. There's a lot of money that they have put into boxing. But eventually, here's my belief. That money is going to get spent on premier
100%.
rights fees. And a lot of the money they've been putting into boxing is going to contract.
Boxing is their gateway drug to be able to get into the U.S. sports market because there's no leagues, really. There's no organization. You can pick and choose, grab a promoter. So I'll give DAZN credit. They had a great 2019. I didn't think they were the network of the year necessarily in boxing, but they were close. They put on big fights that matter. They put on creative fights. You sort of, if you're a fan of boxing, you're like, well, I know Canelo, I know Triple G, I know Anthony Joshua. Well, all three of those are on the same network. So I give them the credit. It hasn't been a perfect year for them. I mean, are you a big YouTube guy against YouTube slaying action?
That tells me that what they're doing is they're biding time for the big dog.
But I agree with your
freak show shit.
Overall theory that this is just them making a splash. They're throwing money away in boxing to try to create a foothold while they're cashing in around the world. And then eventually when they get those NFL rights or that whatever.
Yeah. This is just them putting money in boxing as a showcase to the various leagues that when their rights fees or rights opportunities become available, they can say, see how well we did with this. We had the number one boxer, blah, 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 blah. And then half that shit's going out the window.
So fans can enjoy it in the meantime because you're paying less for pay-per-view quality fights, but that bubble's going to burst.
Also, I don't ever hear John Skipper talking about, I hear him talking about what Canelo does for their subscription fees and how he helped actually change their modeling. Because remember, they gave the first fight away for free. They stopped doing that shit for the second and third fight completely. I never hear him say anything about Bellator, ever. I wonder what happens with the money that they've given them. It'll be curious to see
Maybe if
that.
you party with them, you can get some answers.
And then, of course, you had ESPN Plus. I don't oh, yeah, it's funny. Hard drug addiction. And then, of course,
you're the word. You just stunt the growth of any possible joke erection. You're just
no. I'm not like the donks who hysterically laugh like hyenas at everything you say. You got to have a real zinger for me to get a good laugh. Right. But it also brings us to ESPN Plus, which is very different because it's part of a larger sporting ecosystem. What are your impressions about what happens for ESPN Plus in 2020?
From a combat sense or from a larger sense?
Larger sense.
I don't know, Luke. I mean, look, they're not going to fail. When you have that brand behind it, it's priced correctly,
it's doing well.
And they're really spread out across the board. There's a look right now when you're looking at DAZN, it's really combat or nothing. I know they've got some fringe things on the side, but ESPN has done a good job at sort of well-rounding it and giving a lot of people a reason to get in on that. And with that ESPN Disney engine behind it, you're not going to.
That modeling is the best because you have Hulu, which is for adults. You've got Disney Plus, which is ostensibly for children and everyone in between. And then you got the sports component as a bundle. Last thing I say about this, I said people get two things wrong. One, DAZN's business is largely outside the country. Second is it's not a zero-sum game, right? There are going to be some winners. There's going to be some losers. But to me, it's like, you ever seen people like, oh, I subscribe to a bunch of magazines? and then you check and they only subscribe to like 3 or 4, the ones who really say they subscribe. It's going to be like that in the end.
Barbershops and doctors' offices, the only people left.
That's right. So exactly who wins and who loses, I don't know. But the idea there'll be 1 or 2, I don't actually
Hey,
buy.
I've got a American Beauty Hazy Ripple IPA here from Dogfish Head. Very Grateful Dead inspired. Luke, do you ever get into the Dead hardcore?
I'd rather die than listen to Scarlet Begonia. Fuck the Grateful Dead.
Wow.
Worst band,
That's
worst
so
fans.
Misguided. That's
only fans
that's-
worse are Fish fans because they think their music's actually better when it's the same.
Wow, Chris de Blasio knocking on your door. Wow. I would call you a boomer, yet it's the boomers that are the Dead fans.
That's right.
Really, Luke?
I don't like them.
I mean, I was on the outside looking in for many years, and certainly if you needed a gateway drug to get into the Dead,
Which you do.
There was a lot of gateway drugs that'll get you into the Dead,
Yeah.
but wow, I had a 3-year window in my life where I had 400 live discs. I was to the point where I could hear 5 seconds of the song and tell you the year live that it was.
Yeah, but you have terrible taste in things. This is very on brand for you.
Wow. So you don't respect the jam band art on any level?
I won't say that.
You don't respect the idea of catching feels off the rhythm, if
you're high on Quaaludes, maybe.
No, even sober, Luke. I'm trying to understand.
Dude, no one listens to the Grateful Dead sober and claims to like it.
Well,
that's not what you do.
I think people who used to get high still listen to the Grateful Dead and try to remember what it used to feel like, right?
Which is fine. Dude, if you want to get high and listen to the Grateful Dead and just kind of zone out, whatever, I don't really have an issue. But you can't be like playing the music sober and be like, wow, isn't this great?
No, okay, you want to talk about Pink Floyd? I can give you that argument that it's more of a drug band. Grateful Dead sort of passes past that.
Do they?
You don't see the art in that?
Who? Grateful Dead?
The songwriting, the country rock influence, any of that?
Oh, you mean are they derivative of the various musical influences of their time and then combined it in a relatively unique way along with a traveling circus/drug medicine show kind of vibe? Yeah, sure, they did all of that. Do I like that shit? No, I have ears.
Wow, you pop J in the back. That's fantastic.
That.
Wow. All right. Hey, you want to get into my top 5?
Yes, you have your top 5.
By the way,
you didn't like any of my top 5, which is fine.
You're gonna have to try this. This is absolutely fantastic.
Right.
Never been a giant Dogfish Head
Pull
guy.
it up. Pull it up.
This is the kind of fruity, hoppy IPA that I get down with. Luke,
This looks nice. It's got a little. What would you call that? Little pear almost to it.
Yeah. Looks like TJ Dillashaw's urine. It's great.
If it's got APO in it, I'm ready to have some. Pretty good.
Come to my side of the track.
Pretty
here,
good.
All right.
I'll give that 2 thumbs up. It's
all
good.
right. All right. I like that. I like that.
You know, I see. I'm amenable. You just have to produce quality.
There's got to be somewhere in the middle. We come from such opposite sides of the tracks.
This is good.
You know, like people say, hey, when you guys going to go to a concert together and do a concert show? I don't know what band would be the perfect intersection of where we're
what
at.
about a hip hop act? We could go to a hip hop show together, right?
Possible.
Right?
I mean, I'm a little more of a 90s throwback guy. I don't know if you know, but...
Would you call the Wu-Tang? Like, they're quintessential.
You know,
90s.
if we went to like a Rage Wu-Tang concert
Which
together,
I went to in Atlanta, 1996.
yeah, those were some, there were some riots.
It was the
at those
worst
shows.
concert I've ever been to.
Yeah, the one in Hartford at the Meadows, people burned the fence down, pissed all over the seats. It was great. Yeah,
Yeah?
Yeah, it was great. All right.